Hello everyone, this is J at Inspiration Masters. We are a communication and leadership training institute with several locations around Dallas-Fort Worth area for training of the youth from grade 1st to the 12th grade. We also have the programs for the adults, for the executives, the business owners, for developing their communication skills, and we do several seminars throughout the year. As a part of our inspiring series, we get the opportunity to meet the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the difference makers who are not just making a difference in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but around the world. And today is no different. I have with me Dr. Aditi Samarth. Aditi, welcome to Inspiration Masters.
Thank you, Jay. Very nice to be here.
Thank you so much for finding the time and coming and talking to us today. I will tell you something about Aditi. Dr. Aditi is a faculty in Humanities at the Richland College of the Dallas County Community College District. She teaches courses in arts, literature, humanities, American minority studies, and world cultures. She has earned BFA and MA degrees from Texas Tech University and PhD in humanities from the University of Texas at Dallas. And the topic of her doctoral dissertation was death rituals and ceremonies. We'll be talking a lot about that. And Dr. Samarth has served as a project director and a curriculum development specialist for the U.S. Department of Education Fulbright Hays Group projects abroad to India and to Vietnam. She was selected as a Turkish Cultural Foundation Scholar and as a fellow to bilateral U.S. Arab Chamber of Commerce to the Middle East. Additionally, she has traveled to 50 plus countries for research, conferences, presentation, and fun. So I'd like to know about that. That's very interesting. And Dr. Samarth is a frequent public speaker on global arts and culture. She conducts workshops and training on individual and organizational intercultural competence, diversity and inclusion, mediation and conflict resolution, academic success, and personal effectiveness in workplace. So Aditi, welcome. We have a lot to talk about, and I think we had talked a long time back, and we were longing to have this chat for a very long time, almost more than a year.
Yes.
And I think you were finishing up your PhD at the time, so we would like to know about that part too. So first thing, what got you inspired to go for arts and humanities? Can you tell us something about it?
Absolutely. As you may already know, it's not the most popular subject area to study for people of Indian origin or South Asian, Asian. Or
Why aren't you an engineer or a doctor?
I would probably not have graduated as yet if those were my majors. Well, first and foremost, my father is an architect, and he has had a deep influence on everything that I've done in my life. My parents always gave me a lot of choice, and as long as they saw that I was thriving, pursuing, engaged, interested, fulfilling my curiosity, they never really pushed anything on me. My teachers were the same way in school, and I now, in hindsight, think that that's a very privileged position to be in. True. Because what you see in the United States, and I see this through my own children, is as parents become more successful, the first thing they say is, I want my child to do whatever makes them happy, what they're interested in. So even if, engineering or being a medical student is the way to go, if that's not really what the student, the child is interested in, there's really no point in forcing them. So I feel like my parents and my teachers already had that wonderful insight.
That's why we had a little fun with that. Okay.
So as I said, I got very lucky with my surroundings. Another thing that my parents emphasized to me is that education is for life,
Uh-huh.
and it's not something that you separate from life or work.
Uh-huh.
So in other words, you don't go to school to get a degree just to get a
Yes,
job. And I
exactly.
understand how counterintuitive
That
it
is
is.
right. It is. It is.
It's not the
Absolutely.
most popular thing to say
Yeah.
in this day and age also, but please remember I started much earlier. And I really like that you can't really separate or divorce education from life. What you study,
Uh-huh.
what your education is, in some way it's helping you build your life, and
Yes.
you take that forward with you
Yes.
everywhere you go. Because the only thing that you've really learned are things that you carry forward.
Yes.
So I like to think that I got very lucky with these wonderful people in my life. And then I have to say my husband has been immensely supportive of me. When I said I wanted to teach this or I wanted to go on that program, I want to do a certification on that. He has, stood up to his role as my champion and supporter.
Awesome.
He will be so shocked to hear this because I don't think he hears it from me. But I definitely would give credit to him.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful place
I
to.
think I'll take some credit to get it out of you so you can hear it.
He will thank you. Yes. So those are all the reasons why I chose arts and humanities. The subjects also make a lot of sense to me.
Yes.
I think we live in a world that is ever growing, ever expanding. The population is growing. And I think for each one of us, at some point, we have to be able to answer a few fundamental questions. And the three questions in the humanities, if I might just put on that hat for a moment, is where did we come from? Why are we here? And where do we go from here?
Okay, that's interesting questions, right?
Yes. And your whole worldview is encompassed in those three questions.
You teach that too, right?
Yes,
The
absolutely.
students,
My
ask-
humanities
And
hat.
you confuse them with a lot of questions.
A lot of other questions.
A lot of other questions,
Yes.
not just these three.
No, these
Because
are the
these
basic.
these are not really very easily answerable
No,
questions.
you can spend
but
a whole
the
lifetime and still
learning
not
that.
answer them. Yes.
So the complications just start over there. It doesn't end there. Okay.
Right,
Interesting. So during all the study and your education, and after choosing humanities, as you simply put forward some time back, I asked you a question. It's about human experiences and learning about human experiences. So expanding that, you went into 50 countries, 50 plus countries. So tell us something about, because that's not normally we do, right? So everybody doesn't wake up and go to 50 countries. So what was the trigger, and what kind of things you found out, or what you learned from there? Can you share something on that?
Absolutely, great question. And I do have to put in a caveat, Jay. I think 50 countries is a relative term out of some 179 or so countries, depending on which political platform one stands on. I know people who visited more than 100 countries, so I feel like I'm lagging behind.
Oh, that's right, yeah. There are
Right?
200 in the world, yeah,
Yes.
so that's right, yeah.
So it's all relative, so to speak. But I have been to all the continents, all the 6 continents. I think that has been very helpful. In many ways, people are the same everywhere. Family is important to everyone.
Right.
Smile is a universal language. In general, in my experience, people are very helpful and friendly the world over. I also adhere to the idea that the world is a reflection of who we are.
Yes.
So it's like a mirror.
Yes.
You look and you're going to see what it is that you are ready to
So it
present.
doesn't matter really where people live, they have their own way.
Yes.
But ultimately, end of the day, we are all humans.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I don't want to minimize
Yeah.
the obvious differences, but those differences can very easily be seen or written about or documented.
Right.
But I think fundamentally, people want to have a good job, whatever that means to different people. Everyone wants to take care of the family, young, old, in whatever way works
How they do
for
it
them.
is going to be still different.
shaped by so many
Yeah,
things.
so many
Geography being one of them, history
Yes,
being another one, religion being another one,
Yes.
food availability,
Uh-huh.
physical ability,
Yes.
all of those
All of
factors.
those things
Yes.
factors
So
in.
they're all different variations of the human experiences.
I think that helps you a lot to when you go into your classroom with the students.
Absolutely,
That,
absolutely.
because it's ultimately, if you're talking all about the human experiences, that's all it's about.
Yes,
That your experiences are not just based on just being human. That's not the
yes.
obvious
Yes.
answer, but a lot of other factors which are impacting.
Absolutely. You have to be able to make connections. And the United States, very broadly speaking, my college is a reflection of what population we see in the United States.
Right.
It's the most diverse country in the world.
Yeah.
So you could have a devout religious person in the classroom and you could have a raging atheist.
Oh yeah,
You
can have
know,
everything. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. And you should be able to connect with all of them with equal understanding.
Yes.
So by traveling and trying to at least get a slice
Yeah, when you
of,
go in there, it's a different experience than putting your finger on a map on a country
Yes.
and walking into it. It's two
Yes.
different things totally. So, what are the couple of things which you found, noticed, which were very unique, which came out, and because these are real experiences when you walk in, you'll see something like totally different. What are those couple of things you share with us? Like, you found it very startlingly different from what we experience here in the US.
Absolutely. So, couple of my experiences in Southeast Asia. I go to a lot of temples and monasteries. So it's very common to see monks in the temples and monasteries praying, going about their business, reading, chanting, meditating. They have a bowl in hand. So I learned very quickly that you can take pictures, maybe you can flash a smile, but any other kind of contact is not permissible. Some of them will be very kind, and they will say perfectly okay to take a picture. But I know of some instances, and this was not me, but people will try to close into the monk, and touching is absolutely prohibited for women, since
Right.
the monks men have taken a vow of
Right.
abstinence. So that's an absolute no.
Yeah.
In many Middle Eastern countries that I've been to, again, depending on which part of the Middle East one goes to, very strict, especially during the month of Ramadan. Absolutely no food, no water on the road, on the street.
Oh, they don't sell.
Yes, sell, and you should not be consuming either, even if you're not of that faith.
Oh, okay.
So, as a mark of respect,
Okay.
as deference
Okay.
to the predominant tradition there, it's just not something that you should do. Again, as a mark of respect.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
both of those things reflect that the people who have chosen to do something are making other people do different things.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of crazy to me. but,
Well-
but it's something different, right?
Right,
It's- yeah.
and in the United
Okay.
States, this really reads so differently because
Yeah.
we,
I mean,
we
if you
kind of-
decide not to eat ice cream, doesn't mean I can't eat ice cream in front of you.
Right.
That'll be quite
Right.
strange if that happens
Right.
here, right?
You don't
But
want to, it's okay, but I can do
I
it. You
can.
cannot impose upon me. Absolutely,
right.
absolutely.
That's
Because that's what a
interesting.
democracy is,
That's
right?
right. That's interesting. Yeah.
Your
Okay.
rules are for you, my rules are for me. And only in the public sphere we will have secular rules that every one of us has to follow for organized society, order,
Right.
etc. to flourish.
So-
But the world is, different.
Different.
Yeah. But I'm
Yeah.
sure even in some parts of the United States, if you go to Dearborn, Michigan, for example, the largest Muslim population, Arab population in the United States, I'm sure you're more likely to find similarities to this
Oh, that's
Middle
right,
Eastern
yeah.
example that
It's
I just
possible,
gave
yeah.
than maybe, a Thanksgiving feast in a
True.
different home in Texas.
So if I were to visit only 3 countries, not the 50, which one would you suggest?
Out of the ones that I have already visited.
Out of the ones you visited, if I were to go to only 3 of them, so which one?
So, yes, and no offense to any countries or anything. I love all of them.
If you left out, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
actually, she's not getting paid for promoting the country.
Right.
Maybe.
Yes. Every place has different things to offer, and they're all unique in their own way. But I just have to say, hands down, Morocco.
Morocco, okay.
Specifically the city of Marrakesh in Morocco. And let me just tell you one or two reasons why. So in Morocco, in Marrakesh, the city of Marrakesh, which is quite central, it was built in the 11th, 12th century, very ancient city. You can see the architecture all around. It's all desert. It's a walled city. The old Medina is within the walled city. But it has beautiful gardens. As a public service, the kings, the sultans, the caliphs eventually, they would build beautiful gardens for people to rest, kind of like public service, water fountains, things of that sort. But there's a place there called Gemma El Fana, which literally in English translates to the execution square. So if you can think of medieval Europe, where they would have public executions for wrongdoing, for stealing, for really just going against the law. And they would have these public execution, the citizens, the people are watching. It serves two purposes. One, it humiliates the person who is going to be hung, right? That you did something wrong, identifying this person. And it also instills a fear in the population.
Yeah, the lesson that this is where you get into.
Don't be wayward, follow the rules, otherwise this will be your fate too. So in ancient times, I'm sure they had executions there, not anymore, thankfully. But it's this bustling activity of just humanity. And it's actually on the UNESCO World Heritage Site as a living cultures of the world. So you can find fresh fruit stalls there selling fruit juices, orange juice, tall glass, 40 cents. They have food stalls, they have the souk, the markets, you can buy things. And then you will have jugglers there, acrobats there, palm readers, henna artists. You will have people from the Sahara Desert who have come there selling exquisite and exotic things like ostrich eggs and snake skin. I have just never been so confounded in all my senses at the same time in any one place. They have snake charmers. I didn't quite have the courage to venture. No, I didn't even go close to that. But it's just so exotic.
And this square is at the same place.
Yes, it's in Marrakesh.
Gives you an idea about 12th century. They're trying to explain that heaven and hell kind of thing.
Right here,
everything is right here.
Everything
do
is
this,
right
go
here.
Do this, go here.
Yes.
You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for any judgments, or you don't have to die. It's all here.
Because
right
I don't
now.
think today you would be found. It's so crowded. But just a fascinating place. It's like a page, a story straight out of the Arabian Nights.
Wonderful.
It still exists. So to put it in a nutshell, I was just really blown away.
So you got Morocco and
other places. I will say, as familiar as this will sound to so many people, I would say England. As, similar as it is to the United States, like right across the pond, as we say, it is yet so different. I like how quiet and peaceful the countryside is. You can find all the conveniences of home. All the creature comforts. But I found, much more closer living to nature. Things that are important or should be sustainability. So buying less, consuming less, wasting less, and just recycling some things that
you can be happy. I mean, even if the sun.
That you don't constantly need to acquire things.
The sun never set part is gone. But it's still a good place to go.
Yes,
most definitely. And your third choice. Because it's all going to cost me money. Of course, at the end of that, I think you're giving me a ticket too, right? So I'll be okay. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead. The third one.
Sri Lanka was quite
Sri Lanka.
different
The
as
elephants.
well. Yes, the
Wait,
elephant. They had
did you have an elephant right there?
Yes, I
Oh, you
did. I
Okay.
showered an elephant. I was there
okay.
with my family.
I
But-
thought the elephant with the long trunk shower you instead.
They could.
The other way around. Okay.
Yes, but I think I had showered that
you-
morning.
okay.
Elephants are very intelligent.
So they could figure it out.
They have a beautiful orphanage for elephants. There are elephants that have been in captivity.
Right.
So the Pinavala Elephant Orphanage is where we went. But just the entire country is so lush and green. Beautiful mountains and waterfalls. The food, of course, is very delicious. Beautiful architecture, lovely temples. So yes.
I think it's good idea. So I'd go to Morocco, I would go to England, and go to Sri Lanka.
Go to Sri Lanka.
Excellent. One of the very interesting things which you did with, we'll shift gears here to about your thesis in PhD, and that was about the exit, and not the exit, but post-exit, right? You can say the burials and the ceremonies which go
Yes,
after. So you
yes.
studied on that extensively.
Yes.
And so you're going to tell us something about it, because that's something which we don't really talk about normally.
Okay.
I don't know, because probably we don't have any experience of death or dying. We just fear, or we know that it's going to happen someday, but we actually don't have the real experience of it.
Yeah.
So you went through the whole process of finding out what is it that people do differently in various countries once somebody dies.
Mhm.
So tell us some of the remarkable rituals, because in the US people do know that it could be the burial or the cremation, but what are the other things, like what kind of things you found out which was quite unique, and you thought, oh, this is something which I did not know before, something like that.
So my doctoral dissertation was on death rituals and ceremonies. The fundamental idea is that death rituals and ceremonies reflect how a person has lived their life, or the second question of the humanities, which is how do we live our lives.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yes. So the amount of time and importance and significance that we allot to death is reciprocal.
Right.
It is directly proportionate
Okay.
to the life that the person has lived. So that was a very interesting find. Another very fascinating conclusion of my study was identity. One's identity plays an extremely important role in the rituals. So a lot of people, when they identify with a certain religion, they certainly want to be cremated or buried or disposed of in that particular culture, religion.
Right. Yeah, I think they have a wish
tradition.
list to how they want to do it and things like
Absolutely.
that. Right? Yeah.
Well, and not just the individual, but also the family, because
family,
once the
yeah.
individual is dead, it's really the family
It's the
that
family,
takes
yeah,
over.
yeah.
And more than the family, here is another thing that I learned in my study. Community is the heart of tradition.
Yeah.
We like to think of the individual, and in our American mindset, it is the individual
Yes.
who is empowered to make decisions. But in terms of tradition, it's the community.
Right.
Because the individual person can come and go. They can choose to or choose not to. So if you have to advance any idea or tradition, it is it is on the onus of the community to carry that tradition forward, and the community can absorb all of these little dalliances, the vicissitudes of change that individual members may or may not engage in. So community is at the heart of tradition, and it's very important to follow the tradition, especially in death rituals, because it contributes to a much larger worldview. So for example, in the Christian tradition, when a person is buried, the idea is that they will eventually be resurrected when Christ returns. And so burial makes perfect sense in that tradition. In the Hindu tradition, cremation is the way to depart.
Right.
Because the idea of birth is we were created from the 5 elements. And so on our departure from this earth, when we disintegrate into ashes, we will be immersed in all of these different elements, and we will go back. And so the cycle, the rhythm of life continues. And that really is the ultimate idea, that the cycle should continue. Life is sure about beginning and end for an individual person, but on a larger universal cosmic scale, life continues. So it is through these...
Is it so that what you found is a whole lot of things which you researched on, they all believe in kind of a soul or something?
Pretty much every culture believes in a soul, whether the soul is hovering around or it's released.
Flying, or it's in a box or it's in somewhere, but there is
it
a soul.
is contained, yes.
Something, everyone thinks that there is something, an extension
there
of life.
There is some, yes, pretty much all cultures of the world believe that, even after the body has been buried, for example.
That will be reflecting in the way they think how it's going to be.
Yeah, because it's a very abstract concept.
Yeah, because nobody has actually, as I said that at the beginning, that we don't have an experience of dying, so we don't know what happens afterwards. And it is the concept that this is how it's going to be reformed. According to that, you do the burial process or the cremation, or you do whatever. Is based on the thought process that community has thought that, okay, this is how it's going to be circling around, and the person is somehow going to come back or something.
Right. But then there are so many questions that are not answered. When will they come back? As what?
As what, yeah.
Is it 400 years from now? Is it 800 years from now? And there are so many fascinating studies that talk about near-death experiences, for example. But research has shown, and there was a book that was written on this some years ago, it has shown that even when people have near-death experiences, they will explain, or they will come back to say things like, I saw light, or I saw hands extending out towards me. But upon further research and objective analysis, people pretty much have near-death experiences that reflect their own cultural and religious traditions.
That is right, yeah. It's coming from somewhere which already they have
been
through.
Which is already in our psyche, in our subconscious.
Yeah, that's correct. So, and I heard something interesting from you once we were talking, and that the burial is also just not always that rest in peace kind of thing, like horizontal, but because of the lack of space, people are buried vertically.
Yes.
That was something make me think that even if you're dead, a lot of people are thinking that I'll take a rest, like a lot of people are workaholics. They say, I'll rest, I have a lot of time to rest when I'm going to go in my grave. But probably that's not true either, right? So what is that place?
There are several, and actually it is a solution, if you will, to a very persistent and a real problem of having land. So it's almost like a contest or a competition. Should we have land for the living or land for the dead?
Right.
Because in their own way, they're both important.
Yeah.
But the living can actually do something about it, unlike the dead who cannot.
Right.
And in many cultures, they are symbolically dead because they may have moved on in other spheres. And so buying a large plot, one that can have a coffin in it, and the cost of death itself is exorbitant, 10, 15, 20,000.
Dying is not cheap, okay.
No, and dying is a business. Death is a business. That's another finding from my study. So instead of buying these plots, people will buy that, but then multiple family members can be buried in them. So they will dig deeper rather than longer or wider, and the person, is accommodated, with the rest of their family member.
Right. So you don't sleep, but you stand once you die.
Stand,
okay.
or you're standing and sleeping. There are different ways of looking. But that is not the only way to dispose of the dead body. Many cultures are opting for cremation simply because it's a very viable, sustainable way of disposing of the human body With the ashes, you can mix it in concrete, for example, create a large ball. You can drop it on the ocean floor, and it will attract, algae and fish. And so you're actually providing for other life forms, and many people are opting for that. It's possible to make jewelry from the burning body, so you can reduce the temperature in the crematorium and extract certain mussels that are burning. You can vacuum. I don't recall every single process that's in place, and then you can compress it, and from that carbon that you have extracted and the compression and the crystallization, you can make diamonds. So I was very curious because
I've never heard that.
Yes,
that's something.
I have quite a few books if you ever want to read up on it.
Wow.
Most people find the topic very morbid, but clearly I'm very interested in it.
It is very interesting to create something out of something which is, ultimately everything goes back, as you said.
Right.
We're putting back to the earth because it's where it came from.
Right.
But ornaments is an extension of that. That's
right. But here is the interesting thing. When I said death can also be a business, so going back to this compressed carbon that was extracted from, the denser mussels that were burned during the cremation process. So you can make earrings, a ring, a pendant. A pair of earrings would be approximately $900, depending on the cut and clarity, carats, etc. But I was very curious because I thought, now, what are the chances, again, the researcher in me, of someone taking this, maybe going to a jewelry store and, selling it and making money off it, right? So I extended my research a little further and I went and asked them. And I said, can you tell me, how would you know that the diamonds actually were,
So
from
do they
the
really
mine?
create diamond?
It is a diamond, yes.
It is a diamond.
It is a diamond because it's carbon, right? It's compressed carbon.
Oh, okay. So I did not know you can die and become a diamond.
There is a very beautiful. We're all diamonds in the making. There is a very beautiful saying that coal under pressure becomes a diamond.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
because
just
it's
enough.
The same chemical structure.
Yes. Yeah. So and I said, what would deter a person from selling these diamonds and making money off it? Maybe even to pay for the cremation itself. So I went to a few pawn shops and I asked them. I said, have you ever rejected someone trying to sell you jewelry, diamonds particularly? And a lot of people, business is serious. They are ahead of the game. And one pawn shop owner, he said to me that the manufactured diamonds from the cremation process, they will have a very light blue tint to it because of the barium that exists in the carbon, because it doesn't burn at like 2000 degree Fahrenheit. So it remains within the carbon, and when it's crystallized, it will leave this little blue luster, very faint blue. And so they will reject it because, they don't want somebody's uncle or aunt or something like that. It was just absolutely fascinating, the ways in which people have innovated upon death.
Okay. So there are so many thoughts going on in the back of my mind because of that. Interesting. Very interesting. So I think I like the idea that we are all diamonds in the making.
We're all diamonds in the making.
We are diamonds when we live, and we're diamonds when we die.
We have a few rough edges, but we can soften them out.
Rough edges. If we don't resolve in time, it can still happen afterwards.
Yes. So, be good to the community.
My God, that was something. I never expected that we'll all be converted into a diamond. So I want to ask you the simple question, and that is to inspire a lot of people, a lot of young people we work with, that you decided as a goal of a lifetime goal to do your PhD, and you did it very recently. So, and after being teaching all of these things for a long time, and you just recently completed that. So how did you accomplish that? And that would be something inspiring to everyone out there, that your lifetime goals, you go just after it, just do it. So how did you do it?
Great question. So I finished my PhD last year in 2018. And I've always wanted a PhD. I come from a family that values education, as I said about my father, my teachers. It was a big goal of mine. And after I finished my master's, I met my husband, who was my boyfriend at that time at Texas Tech. And I started what I call my practical life. An immigrant to the United States, I had to establish myself. So the whole process started, and as you may know, it takes many years.
It takes time, and things get put aside.
Yes, and I got my full-time faculty position at Richland College, amazing place to work in, wonderful district to work in. So in many ways, you can say life was set. But you know, when you really want something, that flame that burns in your heart, in your soul, it may flicker a few times, but it will never extinguish. So in your quiet moments, you have to pay attention to what it is that you really came here to do. So listen to yourself, first and foremost. Be persistent. There will always be obstacles. Anything, for anything, there will always be obstacles. I would say have a good support system. And one of the big mistakes people make is to think that we need a lot of people or everyone should be supporting us. Absolutely not. You just need one or two people. You don't need the whole world to support you. Your own belief really should be enough. But because we are all fragile at some times, we have other responsibilities. You know, nobody's really invincible, so to speak. You will need a little help along the way. Maybe you will feel down. A quick example, in addition to my father, also my husband, who would take care of the children when I did all my coursework. But I remember one semester I took 3 classes, so a full-time job, my 2 young boys at that time, they were very young, and then the 3 PhD courses, which was a lot. And the semester ended, it was in December, and on the day that my semester ended, my father, my mom, they came to our house. My dad brought flowers and a small gift for me. And I accepted it, of course. My dad is very thoughtful. I said, thank you, but I said, no, you know, I don't deserve it. That's kind of what I said. And he said, why? And I said, well, I made 2 A's and a B. And he's like, okay. he like had no idea what I was talking about. And he's like, you passed. He said, you completed your 9 credit hours, which is what you set out to do. And he said, you did not compromise on your job. You did all your responsibilities to your children, and you did the 9 credit hours. And he said, after you get your degree, or even a semester from now, I don't think anyone is going to be looking at that A or a B. That's what he said to me.
Completing,
You know, wonderful perspective. That's why I said you don't need the whole world to support you and applaud you. Don't do it for other people. Do it for yourself because you want to. Because this is what you see yourself as. That you have to be your greatest cheerleader. Everybody else is there to help you if needed, but if you can do it for yourself, you really don't need other people. So have 1 or 2 people,
good
not
insight.
too many others.
So anybody thinking about doing anything, accomplishing, that's good advice.
And once you accomplish that goal, set something else.
Set something else.
Keep moving in life.
Keep moving in life.
Yes.
Exactly. So you intrigued a lot of people about the death rituals, your dissertation.
It's a morbid
your
topic.
Expertise on that. So would you like to share some of information where people can reach out to you or something?
Absolutely. I'm very easy to find. I'm a faculty in Humanities at Richland College. Do a quick search, Google search, any web search, or Richland College search, you will find me. But if it's okay with you, I think it's perfectly okay to reach out to me through your wonderful organization.
Absolutely, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I will have that information on
Wonderful.
on videos and all.
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing. You kept me thinking now, and I think the most interesting part was that we are all diamonds, and that's really interesting. So I leave everyone with that thought about think about yourself as diamond, uncut, unpolished. We are polishing as we go, but there's one more opportunity afterwards too. So that was something very interesting. Again, everyone, thank you for watching. This is Jade Inspiration Masters, and I will see you back in a week. And before I go, from the entire team of Inspiration Masters, thank you so much for sharing all those ideas.
Thank you, Jay.
We will think about it. Thank you so much again, and I will see you back.